calling all hardscapers, landscapers, and outdoor living pros. This is your host, Joshua Gillow. I am so excited to announce our first ever 6-day immersive hands-on outdoor living design build event in New Holland, Pennsylvania. Over the course of a week, Yes Express, Souders Hardscape Supply, and Pave Tool Innovators are going to teach you how to become downright dangerous in sales, design, installation, and equipment/tool operation. Expert teachers will cover the installation of custom features like permeable pavers, fireplaces, stone decks, custom outdoor kitchens, water features, putting greens, and so much more. This event was designed specifically for growth-minded business owners and teams who want to get their hands dirty and learn from the best so they can take their businesses to new, unimaginable levels. So mark your calendar from February 20th to the 25th. Seating is limited. You can get your tickets today at outdoorlivingmastery.com. Again, outdoorlivingmastery.com. Oh, did I mention that we're raffling off over $20,000 in specialty tools and other profit-driving goodies at this event? You're not going to want to miss it. Let's make 2023 the most profitable year ever. Now back to the show. Welcome back. On today's show, I have my personal life and business coach on. I brought Dr. Keith Waggoner on in order to speak into what it really means to be a man in today's society, what it means to be that masculine energy in your life. And we talk about a lot of things in this space. And we're going to talk about saboteurs and sages. And if you don't know what that means, listen in and you're going to learn a lot about what the masculine journey is really all about. Hello, and welcome to Outer Spaces, a podcast dedicated to empowering designers and contractors in the outdoor living space. Through this show, I hope to create a powerful resource for you, someone who is trying to grow their company but might not have all the tools and processes to do so. On Outer Spaces, we're passionate about breaking the chains of small mindsets and helping contractors just like you take control of their businesses and their lives. My name is Joshua Gillow, and through my 25 years of dirt under the nails experience, I look forward to sharing tips, strategies, and other contractor success stories here on the Outer Spaces podcast. Now, let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome back to the Outer Spaces podcast. This is your host, Joshua Gillow, and today we have a super special guest. I know I say we have special guests oftentimes, but I actually have, this man has been such a huge part of my life and my success through business life and personal life and just growth in general. I wanted to bring him and introduce you guys to where I go in order to get guidance and all in my life. And he's the owner of Strategic Edge Life and Business Coaching. He has a PhD in psychology. He masters in marriage and family therapy. And he also is a coach, an entrepreneur, a business strategist, and an overall badass because he's got multiple black belts in different martial arts. And this guy is just a plethora of amazingness. Dr. Keith Waggoner, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me on, Joshua.
It's been an incredible journey with you for the last almost 4 years now. We've been working together.
That's right.
And weekly calls and the growth that's happened in my life because of your guidance. And what I love about you is you won't give me the answer. You have me search for it and find it, and then it lands within my soul. So I appreciate you making me work for it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's been amazing. And just coming off an event, Keith just put on an event with Harley it's called Undisputed Mastery. And we just got back from that the other day, and it was, it's a men's event and just tons of awesomeness there to help the men there lead better, more full lives. And I'd love to go deeper into this today with you, Keith, the whole concept of the masculine journey and what that even means and all that. So, but before we get into that, tell us a little bit about yourself, Keith, and where you come from, and so we can give the listeners kind of an idea of who they're listening to.
Well, thank you, Joshua. I just consider myself a regular guy who loves people and loves to serve. I've had the privilege of going through some really hard things in my life, and the base of all of my philosophy is we face hard things to do great things. And that's what it was about. Grew up with an alcoholic father, learned how to anticipate people and moods early on, created this heart and this drive inside of me to get better, to get stronger, and to help others. And so I put myself through school, got a couple doctorate degrees, a master's degree, was privileged enough to get in front of lots and lots of fantastic men, everything from like my great grandmaster and martial arts instructor, Fred Weeks, who's also a Lakotan tribe elder, Motho Paiho. And you mentioned him a while ago, Tuhan Harley Elmore, introduced me to Kali, Jeet Kune Do, Muay Thai, has been, my brother in arms and my great friend for 3 decades. Tony Robbins, was able to become one of his top platinum level and line platinum coaches. I traveled with him, did some great things, and lots of other people. And so we believe one thing is that there's 10,000 hands, what they say in Sayok martial arts tribe. And that basically means no man is ever successful by himself. You get here from your journey and the journey of the other men and the trials and the triumphs that they go through in and of themselves. And so I'm just here ready to serve, ready to help men all around the world.
I love it. And you've done so much of that. And it was so obvious during this event. There's roughly 30 men there, and you could see some of them come in very broken.
Oh, yeah.
And, through the process and through all your amazing teaching and the different physical activities that we did, that you could see the possibility light back up in their eyes. And I can't even imagine when they went home and how they embraced their wives or spouses or whatever, their kids, or just how they just had a whole new outlook on life. And it's all because of the amazing work you've done and tribe and all that. So I can't thank you enough. And I know they'd say the same.
Oh, thank you. I mean, that's what it's all about right there, right? You were there, lending your time and all of that. I mean, you were doing it. That's what it's about, and that's the payment. Because in some of these programs, you don't really make money. It's just simply a matter of changing lives and developing relationships. And that's the heart of all that we do. Knowing that these guys are going back and the testimonies are already coming in. You've probably heard some of them.
Oh, yeah.
It's my life will never be the same. I'm now awake as a man. I didn't know what it was like to be loved like that and face, my own demons like that and to fight for what I believe in. And so, yeah, when they go home, they're different men to embrace their wives and their children, to face that day differently, with the promise of being successfll, more than just money, to have a real purpose. That's the idea.
No, and it definitely delivered on that this weekend. It was crazy to see it happen. And, the amazing part is so often in our masculine journey, in our journey as men through life, we feel like we have to be, stoic and just kind of hold all of our shit in, and not show that we're weak or we just want to be hurt or we even want to cry. I mean, God forbid you do that in front of people, right? You always have to just be strong. And this event was so powerful because so many of the men that I talked to had never shown emotion in front of another human being before, which I think is crazy. But this is what we're taught, right? As young men, we're taught to. I remember going to funerals and sitting there in the corner, just holding everything I could so I didn't cry, because as a man, you don't show weakness. And I'm sitting like, when was that ever a rule? You know what I mean? It's like, and where does that go? That energy has to go somewhere. Where does it go if you don't let it out? So it was so powerful to see. Have a safe space for these men to be able to open up and to share the demons that have been, plagued them for years, and all of these saboteurs, as you call them, and that kind of stuff. So it was incredibly powerful that way.
It is. And it's this fantastic contrast because it's uniquely masculine and it's a man event. We use boxing as a metaphor. People aren't just sitting around listening to a speaker. They're up and they're talking about things like dangerousness and hitting and defending your family, and they're doing these boxing exercises. But at the same time, we say, hey, you've got to be vulnerable. One of my favorite sayings is, when we become vulnerable with each other, we become invulnerable together. And so we get into the deepest, darkest corners of a man's heart, and whatever has wounded him, going all the way back when he was a little boy, and the accusations that he wasn't enough. And to become vulnerable like that with a group of men, for them to cry and just weep and then on each other's shoulders, and for us to be there and look them in the face and say, it's going to be all right. It's going to be better than all right. We're going to show you how to rebuild yourself and go forward. Man, I mean, I can't imagine anything that's more powerful than that.
I couldn't agree more. And to say it's one thing, but to experience it for, in reality, it's a whole nother level. It's so cool. And so let's go a little bit deeper into this thing we call the masculine journey. It's something that you introduced me to, because I didn't know there was even this whole concept. So what is the masculine journey and why is it so important?
Yeah. And, there's lots of on-ramps to that interstate about the masculine journey. But at its core, the masculine journey is just a man basically asking himself the question, what does it mean to be a man? What is it to be a man? And what does it mean to be good at being a man? Now, notice that's a different question than asking being a good man, because, that could be something different. Just being nice, for instance, could get you labeled a good man. But being good at being a man, that's a whole nother question. And that means that you have to look within and ask, why am I a man? What's that all about? Why do I have denser bones and typically bigger muscles? Why does my brain compartmentalize and function the way it does? It's more than just having a certain type of anatomy, right? It's the whole form and function of that. And so the manhood journey is really all about just asking those questions and deciding, how can I? Because, I'm of the firm belief that we're created men on purpose. It's not an accident. It's not just some allele expression in our genetics. It's a real chosen path. It's a calling. So we ask men to ask themselves, what does it mean in your life to be good at being a man?
No, that's, I guess, to your point, we all as men think, are we enough?
That's right.
That's a constant pattern in our minds where we're always then trying to prove it, right? Through achievement and all that. And so how do we get that kind of wiring? Like, why are we wired that way?
Yeah, it's a great question. We could take a spiritual approach and ask, okay, why did God make us this way? Or, if you want to take a purely biological approach and say, what was the difference between the Y and the X chromosome? And so then when you're born that way, and then what does that mean for the family you're born into, the society you're born into? What are the forms and the functions of a man? But we know within society, without a doubt, men are the ones that are down in the trenches doing the work. They take the call to action when there's danger, to defend the country, to defend the family. They're the ones building the infrastructure of the streets and the sewers and the skyscrapers. And it's been a popularized thing these days to ask, is it okay to be a man? And the answer to that is damn straight it is. It's better than okay. That without men, women couldn't be women. And so a part of what we're asking men to do is just to wake up and ask themselves, what does it mean to be good at being a man? To answer that question, because we really believe that every man struggles with a primary question, which is, do you have what it takes? And we're never told, for instance, if someone says, hey, go be a man, be a man about that. What does that even mean, right? We don't know. Somehow it means, dry it up, stop crying, stop whimpering, and just get up and go about doing stuff. Now, that's right in one way, in that we want to be strong so that we can keep going. But in another way, we've isolated ourselves from other men so that, we don't have other brothers, there with us, picking us up and helping define what it actually means to be a man or to be good at being a man. I can keep going, Joshua. I don't want to just keep talking here. I want to wait for your questions. But I don't know, is that the direction you were hoping to go?
Yeah, because it's, when it comes to the masculine journey, we talk about masculine and feminine energy, and how they're not only tied to being a male or a female, right? That both males and females can have both. Could you talk a little bit about that energetic polarity and how we can see some men have more feminine energy and some women have more masculine energy, and how that plays out? Because I think that's really fascinating. I always thought that, masculine meant, that only males could have it, and feminine meant only females could have it. But I've learned along my journey here that that's not the case at all. So could you talk into that?
Sure, yeah. And that's a very interesting field when it comes to like energies or personalities. Oh man, as a psychologist, you can do a deep dive in that forever. But at its very core, it's an expression of self and personality. So when we're defining men, we have to look at biology, number one, just having the body of a man and the genitalia of a man, let's say. But then also, what does it mean to have a role as a man? And that can look different in different cases and different scenarios. You can have, and we'll just speak plainly here, you can have men who is obvious. They're very masculine, deep voices, kind of gruff. Even the way they move is a little more lumbering, perhaps. And then you can get men that are a little further on, maybe in the feminine spectrum, if you can think of masculinity and femininity in a line that you can move back and forth between the extremes to even right in the middle. And you can see some men are a little more flowy. a little more emotional, right? A little more creative, perhaps, in their personalities. And so masculinity and femininity isn't typically what we're talking about when we're talking about being good at being a man. Because at its core, it means defining who you are and what you're doing with yourself. And then understanding both your biological and relational role, meaning, okay, I'm a man. I can look, yep, check. There you go. I'm a man. And then who are you in your relationships, right? And so let's say that you're a feminine man and you get married. Well, a part, or at least a little more feminine, let's say, a part of the goal of that person is to understand themselves, love themselves, right? And then be able to partner themselves with someone that they match with. We call that polarity, meaning that you have someone that you can fit in with and love really well. And so typically, a little more feminine man is going to want to be with a woman who is a little more masculine than feminine. That way that they can really match up and love each other well. But within these spectrums, there's always a part of self-discovery that has to go on, which is, the discovery of self and the conclusions about who you are. I say this a lot. Identity is the strongest force of human psychology. So that in an event like Undisputed Mastery, as you know, because you were just there, we had a plethora of different kind of guys there. People who worked hard with their hands in constructions, entrepreneurs, professional corporate people, service providers like doctors and lawyers and pharmacists. We had dancers there, men who were dancers, men who, of all over the feminine, masculine spectrum. And they all found commonality in just this. One of the ideas about being good at being a man is accepting your strength and loving yourself for who you are and being willing to go out there and understand what you believe in and stand up for it. Because it seems that we boil it down to this ideal of manhood. It means really in some form and fashion, fighting against tyranny. Now you think about what that means. I mean, the tyranny of what? Well, number one, the tyranny that says that somehow you're supposed to be ashamed about being a man, either a masculine man or a feminine man or a man anywhere in between. We want to get rid of shame in every shape and form so that you can discover who you are and discover, how you can be the best version of yourself.
Oh, I love that. And you hit on the identity part. Could you go a little bit deeper on, you mentioned that that's one of the core fundamentals as a human, that you will follow your, to the ends of the earth, who you think you are. How is that, created, and that's something that I learned along the journey as well. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like who creates that? Who told me I'm supposed to be that way? But could you go a little deeper into the identity part? Because it's such a huge piece.
Oh, we could dive deep on that too. Identity, and these are great questions. You're stretching me here a little bit as a psychologist. So the identity part, it's individualistic, but yet there's patterns and design to that. And I don't know if this is where you were going with that, but we could go all the way back to the very beginning within the theology of man and woman. Is it okay if I go there?
Please.
Yeah, excellent. This is my take on it. Please take this with a grain of salt for all of your listeners out there. This is my viewpoint, is that the scriptures say that God is neither male nor female, but he's spirit. But you think about that, and if you look at that, what does that mean? It means that somehow God split himself in half in the Garden of Eden, and he created maleness, masculinity, if you will, and femaleness, or femininity, if you will. And they're both expressions of him. And the scriptures say that when we go to heaven, we will be one like him. And so there's this division, and within that division, anytime you divide something, there's always a longing for unity, for those things to be unified. And that's a part of when we say masculinity, really, what does masculinity long for more than almost anything else? And it's to be reunited with the feminine version of himself. The scriptures also say that God has created and put eternity in our hearts. And what that means is, I believe, is that we're always seeking God. We're seeking truth. We're always journeying, trying to find truth and trying to find what it's all about. Seeking, an end to suffering, seeking an end to curiosity, always building, always growing. All you have to do is look at the technical landscape and see how curious and innovative people are. That's a part of that eternity that God put in our hearts. So when it comes to male and female, if we can consider that theological perspective, that God separated, kind of split himself in two and put him in the garden. The first man, Adam, was in the garden. He put him through this exploratory process of discovery because God wanted him to discover it for himself, which was he's not complete. He needed something else, something more. So he first created man, and then he made his piece de resistance, right? The masterpiece that he created in woman. All glorified, right? Personified of beauty, that feminine part of God. And all you have to do is see a young man look at a beautiful woman, and you can see that that's true. How his eyes light up. I mean, women are so beautiful, and men have been seeking and pursuing women ever since. And so we were split in the garden, and we seek to come together. Even looking at human anatomy, all you have to do is look and see how well we fit together like a puzzle piece, to know that when we're together, we become one. And so the application of that is in relationship. That's the best way to discover the self and the identity of what it means to be man and what it means to be woman, so that then the identity comes together and forms one unit. And that's one of the great things about relationship that it does, is it really helps you discover yourself. As we always say, if you want to attract the right woman or if you want to attract the right man, first be the best version of yourself that you can be. And then when you get together and you draw that person, you attract that person, life is just so beautiful together. I don't know. Was that what you were thinking about? I hope that was all right.
No, it was amazing. I'm just sitting here enjoying hearing you talk and explain it. I think it was done in a very beautiful way. And, it's so crazy because nowadays you hear people, there's this whole concept of toxic masculinity, right? You have the jock that's just like nasty over the top, like yelling, that kind of thing, like that toxicness. And I think that masculinity has gotten a bad rap for that. Yeah. Could you speak into how society uses that to kind of make masculinity a bad thing?
Yeah, for sure. And all of that stuff is a reaction, right? And you can take several premises about this, but, anytime that you sensationalize something and people jump on a bandwagon, it becomes a matter of virtue and shame. And you can no more say toxic masculinity without also saying toxic femininity, because they're both there. And it just seems to be in different forms and functions. I mean, you don't think that women can be violent? You don't think that women can be abusive? Oh, believe me, as a clinical psychologist, I've seen the vehemence of women and how terrible it'll be. I mean, just consider this old saying, hell hath no wrath like a woman's scorn, right? We've all heard that. Mm. And so we have to really check ourselves in our reactions to a phrase as powerful as toxic masculinity. I can tell you, I have an 18-year-old son who has come up through high school. He's now a freshman in college. And it's just amazing how in the world of academia, somehow it's bad to be a man. And anytime we're shaming people for something that they can't help, something they were just born with, like their gender, their sexuality. I mean, where does that come from? That's, pardon the expression, that's bullshit from the beginning. And so if we can get rid of the phrase and everything that is toxic masculinity, then we can get down to the heart of what some of the real issues are. And I think a lot of the issues are that when a young man is not taught to embrace manness, if you will, and what it means to be a male, what it means to be masculine, and how to be mentored to be good at being a man, then he's got to figure it out on his own. And you can look within this country for the public school systems, right? And the divorce rate and all of those things. Most young men will only be exposed to women. I mean, I think the statistic is something like 80 to 85% of all teachers in school, in public schools, are women. And so that means that also in the divorce rate with single mothers going out there doing their best to raise a young man. I mean, bless their hearts for that, man. I mean, thank the Lord for strong single mothers. But still, we have to look and see what that means, right? That means that if even 50%, and I think the number of that is higher, that you can look within the inner cities, most young men are raised with single mothers. And so that means that you get your 80% exposure to school and the 50% at least at home. Most young men will almost never have a strong male role model. So what are they supposed to do with the testosterone? What are they supposed to do with these bones and these muscles? What are they supposed to do with this way and compartmentalized thing that our brain does when testosterone affects the way that person thinks? What are they supposed to do with their protective instincts? Well, we know that a young man who doesn't learn how to use that strength, it's really easy for that strength to go wrong, because we all must be mentored, right? Even young ladies must be mentored. And when a man's strength isn't utilized, it'll either go passive, which means he'll turn inward and he'll apply his strength and his maleness against himself. And you can see substance abuse and drugs and, isolation and so many things about that. Or his strength will turn bad and it'll become abusive. It's basically the same form, but it goes outward, where he begins to abuse other people and find ways to just, get that call to adventure like crime or violence even. And so since most crime, about 90 to 99% of all crime is committed by men, at least violent crime, we should say, it's easy to coin a phrase like toxic masculinity. But it is not a useful phrase at all because it doesn't get to the heart of what's really going on. It just simply seems to shame people with no solution.
Wow. Yeah. There's a lot in there for sure. And
Yeah.
that's amazing. You mentioned mentor in there, and especially, men and women, they need to have role models in their life, people that they can aspire to be like and to emulate and all that. How powerful is it to have as a young man? I kind of know the answer, but I'd love you to speak into it a little bit of having that strong role model in your life and to put you in the right order and say like, that's wrong. That's not right, to manhandle you if needed, that kind of thing. How does that affect the masculine journey to have that strong masculine figure?
Oh man, you said it right there, Joshua. That's it, man. And that's one of the things for all of you guys watching or listening to this. This man right here is a fantastic father. I know firsthand. He is fantastic. And so to get there into, one of the things that children desire more than anything, whether it's boy or girl, they desire your undivided attention. Little girls want to twirl in front of their fathers and to know that they're beautiful and that you love them enough to really, really pour into them. Young men, little boys, they want the same thing, right? And then for you to have a set of principles, kind of like a knight's journey, to teach these young boys the stages of development, who that they can be, is really, really important. Because the idea of mentorship isn't just to, develop a relationship and have fun together, even though that can be a very important part of it. If you can look like going back to the Jungian stages and archetypical ideas of male development, man, you have a child. Remember, we just went through these. You have a squire or a page, right? And which is really an apprentice. And then, that becomes a knight, right? Which is kind of, this warrior type persona, or that can also be the prince. And then that person becomes the king, which is they have their own family, they rule their own kingdom. And a good kings always become great sages, these wise elders that you can depend on. And then when you live a great life and you build a legacy, you get to pass away, leaving all of the beautiful gifts and deeds you've done. And then you get to be a legend, which is an example of how life is supposed to be. There's a great book written by a mentor of mine from Little Rock, Arkansas, a guy named Robert Lewis. He wrote a book called Raising a Modern Day Knight. One of my favorite books I got back in the 90s that's been just paramount with me and how I coach and how I even raise my own son. And it's the idea that you need to make sure that you look at these stages of development and that you really define what it means to teach them and to create milestones that they must learn competencies and actually earn the right to go to the next level. Because what happens if they don't is kind of like having a bad king. We've all heard stories or maybe even known people who got inheritances or, some prince that, their father died and they became the king and then they became tyrants. They became terrible people with no real skill, no real virtue or principles that did terrible things. And that's one of the plagues in our modern society today is people have access to so much wealth, so much information, so much knowledge and things but they don't know how to use it. They don't know how to regulate it. And so mentoring, especially a good type of mentoring where there's real things that matter that people can earn, is really important. Now, stepping aside from any controversy, there have been organizations of the past that has tried to do that. The Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, right? There's some things like that. You can get great sports organizations like football. My son played football, and I can tell you, those were some outstanding coaches that made an amazing difference in his life. Those coaches at Harding Academy here in Arkansas, man, they were fantastic. I love them to death. And so it's exposure to that real masculinity, basically what we say, doing real men things, real man stuff, right? That makes all the difference. But remember, this stuff has got to be hard so that they can learn how to be resilient and push past discomfort. You can study martial arts. It's another great way to do that. Doing jiu-jitsu, doing an art like Kali, And I came up doing Tong Sudo with my instructor, and then Kali with some other instructors. Man, there's some great, great, great lessons there.
I love that, and it's yeah, I love the as you move through that, and there's that whole concept of going from child to legend and that progression, and I can see it in my young boys. They're 13 and 15 now, and I can see them like almost pegging like, okay, Oliver's just about into warrior, like getting into to the apprentice side of things. I can see him shifting now because he's now taking a different role in life, but having that pattern that's part of the masculine journey in the back of your mind, you're kind of watching and making sure they're moving through. And I love what you said at the event. It's either you or Harley mentioned at the event, where at each one of those transitions that there's a rite of passage.
That's right.
Right. Could you speak a little bit more into that concept of rite of passage between those different archetypes?
Sure. Yeah. And so a rite of passage is at the point where the skill or the competency has been achieved. And if you can think of, let's say, a Native American tribe, for instance, a boy would have a rite of passage of a hunt. Or if you've ever seen the movie 300, Leonidas had the rite of passage that he had to go out and kill the giant wolf, right? These rite of passages are only after the apprentice stage. In between that stage of development, let's say in between each stage of development is a whole host of competencies that must be learned. So when they've gotten to a certain point, you want to punctuate those like an anchor of an event that they can look back and say that they're proud of. And that is a metaphor for their achievement. And it's something kind of like Napoleon putting, medals on his soldiers. It's something they can look at, be proud of, and that can anchor them into a new identity. I now am a knight. I mean, think about that. And then anytime that there's any argument about who they are, they can look back at all their great accomplishments and deeds and skill sets and training that can say, no, I really am a knight. I did all that hard stuff back there. What are you talking about? I've earned this. And then when they can perform at that certain level with things that you can teach them to do, whether it's camping skills, knowing how to light a fire, or martial arts skills, or it could be a plethora of a whole bunch of stuff, putting a computer together. I mean, it can be all kinds of things, but developing that into something they really have to earn, not just a merit, not just some kind of celebration, but a real demonstration of skill set. That's what seems to matter most.
It's so interesting to hear it that way and think about how society is already kind of wired, maybe not correctly, but has wired that with like graduating high school is one, rite of passage, or graduating college, or getting married, or like all of these kind of baked into society already. I find it really fascinating, those rites of passage.
And speaking what happens of that real quick, Joshua, those are big rites of passages, and they're important. But we've washed away everything that they were supposed to mean, right? I mean, graduating college, okay, yeah, you got your degree, but marriage, most people spend more money on the wedding than they ever will in learning how to be a good spouse, be a good husband or wife.
Yeah.
And so now it just becomes a celebration instead of a real meaningful ceremony. And so what I hope to see, and a part of what Undisputed Mastery, the Becoming Champions event does, is teaches men, hey, you want to build competency, because real confidence as a person comes from having the competency, the real abilities to back it up.
Wow. Yeah. I couldn't have said it better. Right on. I love that. So you mentioned, the archetypes going from child to squire and up through to, the different levels. What happens when a child ends up skipping one of those levels because of some kind of tragedy in their family or some kind of life circumstance? What happens then if they don't move through in a very generic way, if you will, or expected way?
Yeah. And that happens all the time, right? Excuse me. You'll have, a family where let's say the mother passes away tragically. We'll just use kind of that example. And then like the daughters have to step up and be the surrogate mother. Yeah, there's a lot of times that happens. And they can miss some stages of development. And that doesn't guarantee dysfunction. But what typically winds up happening is they grow up too fast. And those are the people that begin to look for a way out so that they can feel special, so that they can go and be loved in a way that they're not being loved now. And that's really the core of what all of this is. It's people's desire to be loved and to be accepted. And so what happens is they'll go out and they'll find a way to get love, let's say from a young man. They become promiscuous early, maybe even pregnant or sexually active, get a sexually transmitted disease. And then that changes the entire course of their young life. And the results of that is someone who has never experienced the idea of really true self-discovery and self-expression. And then that shows up in society by people who, are miserable and depressed. We have all these clinical diagnoses and a plethora of pharmaceutical answers to that, right? That just help people numb themselves and never have a chance of real fulfillment. And it's really a sad commentary of modern day life.
For sure. There's always this constant march forward with technology to solve problems, but some of these problems are pretty basic if we think about them and actually bring them down to their core.
Yeah. And
It's amazing.
There could be all kinds of other examples of that. For instance, like a young man who doesn't get mentored, he can get stuck in between the page and the night stage, or even between the child and the page stage. You guys ever seen these man boys, dress like boys, but they're as big as men. They act like boys. They always want to party. They never grow up. They never get responsibility. They never know how to treat a woman properly and respectfully. They never learn how to shake a hand properly. They just dwell in basements. I mean, that's just a sure sign symptom right there of someone who wasn't mentored properly. They never had to go through those challenges and face themselves, and face the idea of responsibility and what it means to be in society and to be a productive member. Because when you miss those stages, what you do is you focus on self because there's something missing and you just can't figure it out. And so then you try to self-soothe with things and you overindulge yourself in things. And unfortunately, that just makes the problem worse.
Yeah, it's certainly not a solution when you end up with addictions and all those other things to self-soothe, as you said. And that tends to be the catalyst, when things just start to go downhill, because those things are never in a positive note,
That's right.
They never lead to a positive ending.
That's absolutely right.
You mentioned earlier about balance. One thing you've taught me, and thank you for the call out on being a great father. And when I met you and we did the last that was one of my big struggles.
Yes, sir.
It was really a big struggle. You've helped me come 360 on that. And, to the listeners out there, without this man's tutelage through this, I'd probably still be the same man that I was a year and a half ago before I went to the first event, and focusing on myself and then just cloaking it in the fact that I was doing it all for my family. And the reality was that I was doing it for me, and I was using that as an excuse. And I would be with my family, but I'd be physically there, but I would not be mentally present. I'd be somewhere else. I'd be thinking about the next project or the next achievement or something, and my kids would suffer without my attention. They didn't feel it. If you asked them, they probably wouldn't know it, but I knew it in my heart that I was not being true as a father and showing up. So what I would love you to talk into is this concept of how you can balance business and family here, because it was a heck of a struggle for me. Or what are some of the signs that aren't as obvious for when you're way too focused on self and business and not as much in your family? Because the last thing I want to die with, Keith, is regret.
Yeah.
And
right.
if you're still young enough to catch it, it could change the whole trajectory of your life, like it's done for me.
Yeah. And first, let me say you have just done outstanding, brother. I mean, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
With the way that you look and you see and you go and you make changes. You are outstanding. To answer that question, the first premise I like to teach about this is nothing is free. In the real adult world, not in the Matrix, not in Neverland, we have to realize nothing's free. Everything is a trade. And in the concept of trying to, let's say, trade time for money, if you will, there's not any amount of money that can buy even 1 second of your time. Meaning that if you understand, let's say that, Lord forbid, but one of your children was in a terrible accident and they were about to die. I mean, let me ask you, how much money would you give to even get just even another day with them?
Everything.
I mean, the answer is all the money. And so we can see that every second of time is precious. And so even if it's just time, even if we can just reduce trades to time, we understand, wow, we've got to take every second serious. Make it sacred. And so then if we understand that, then we've got to create a list of principles and priorities, asking ourselves, what kind of person do I want to be? If I can see my life as a storyline, like I'm watching a movie, what do I want the movie to be about? What do I want my life to be about? Do I want to be the guy that just worked all the time and missed all the milestones with my kids? Do I want to be the guy that even when he's with his family, that, anytime my phone flashes, I'm down and I miss on average 11 minutes from a 1 second look at your phone, because that's how long it takes to get refocused on something else? Do I want to be that guy? And if the answer is no, then you have to be directly honest with yourself about the trades that you're making and come to grips as a real man. This is one of the things we teach that men must do, is realize nothing's free. You can't go and just take for stuff. That's what kids do. They expect for other people just to give them stuff. Men get the idea that we must step up as an asset, as someone who provides, as someone who can take care of things, and especially ourselves. And so in any moment, I have to have my priority and understand what's the most important. So when we talk about this thing of work-life balance, let's say, it's simply a matter of knowing my priorities and understanding what a good trade is. Because a great life is one at the end of your day where you can look back and go, oh yeah, that was great. That was a great day. And we know it was a great day because within my time blocks, I did what I needed to do. And I did it really, really well, including having boundaries, an absolute cutoff time, because I'm man enough, I'm gutsy enough, I'm ballsy enough to say no to whatever it may mean when the phone rings or when that report is due, to do my job ahead of time enough that when it comes, I can hold the boundaries and have the integrity to say no. Because a life well lived is one where you said no to almost everything, so that the few precious yeses you said yes to very, very, very well. I get that from one of my favorite quotes from Warren Buffett, which is the most successful people in the world say no to almost everything. Because successful people, really successful people, ones who have great lives, understand the value of priorities and having boundaries and having the courage and the strength enough to say no. And so you have this idea of balance then is making that trade in that moment and saying, nothing is worth this focused time, this present time where I'm going to be present with my family. So whether it's your wife or your daughter or your son, you're there and they've captured every bit of you. Even if it is just a 15-minute time block, you do it super well instead of fooling yourself and lying to yourself thinking you can multitask in that moment.
Yeah, I think the struggle I know for myself, I'd speak from my own experience here, is this fact of deep down as a man, I'm a provider and a protector, right? So if those are my two jobs and they supersede everything else in the family, it's just, I'm just there to protect them, not necessarily be with them, present wise, because I can be like, well, provider could mean that I'm constantly running my business in the background and, I can justify stealing time from them, my presence with them, because I'm doing my more ultimate job of the provider. But you've helped me realize that that's bullshit, complete bullshit. And it's really a matter of focusing on that priority.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, isn't it something how we just lie to ourselves, man? You think about what possesses us. What is it we think we're really doing? I mean, we're not fooling anybody, right? And so when it comes down to even the grandiose things like, oh, I've got to do this. It would be so awesome, so glorious. Yeah, but at the same time, we have to consider something we call second and third order effects, which is like a domino. Okay, who else is this going to affect? How else is it going to affect them? This isn't all about me. And that's another manhood lesson that we always teach is it's not all about you. In fact, relationships, first and foremost, are a place to give, even above receiving. So we have to realize, man, we're given this strength and these muscles and these bones and this thought, not just for our own sakes. We're given this also to be a powerful, good force in life. And if you want to talk about an antidote to this thing that some people call toxic masculinity, it's that. Men understanding who they are, loving being a man, and then being able to utilize it in a powerful and positive way, which includes sticking to your priorities and your principles. We have another event called Principled Savage, which you're very familiar with, you've been to. And it's where basically the tagline is learning AQ, adaptability quotient, learning how to make decisions like a Navy SEAL is the idea. We put people through an integrative combatives course where they shoot and they do knife work and they go from empty hands to knife to firearms, all underneath this huge pressure. You've been there, man, and you did so good.
Oh, yeah.
And the lesson that we teach people there is this idea that, hey, listen, you've got to step up and develop competencies. Because in that moment, right, in that moment as a man, we have to be able to deliver. And men who have the capability of delivering, who have the ability to have a good endeavor in their life, meaning that they feel like they're the master of something, they're super good at something, whether it's sculpting or computer work or writing or speaking or whatever it may be, being a businessman, that's really one of the pathways to fulfillment. But then the other one is being able to say no to your mastery so that I can spend time in relationships with family. and having the strength and the capabilities to do that.
Man, yeah, Principled Savage was an absolute crazy event where I learned so much about being under pressure. And, it's completely foreign to me to be, 1 minute fighting off, somebody coming at me, and the next minute to be grabbing a knife and defending myself, and then jumping into a pistol and moving through a course and all of that. And that was it. Thank you guys do it in such a beautiful way because it's the reps, right? It's the constant moving through those slow reps in order to build up that rep. And pretty soon it becomes much more proficient, and eventually it's smooth. And that was one heck of a weekend. I'll tell you, that was a lot of fun. I know Ace and I learned a lot.
I hope you share some of those videos. We were like John Wick, man. You did so well. That was great.
That was fun. Now, Keith, before I let you go, I wanted to jump into a topic. We don't have to go too deep into this, but I wanted to introduce it to the listeners. It's something that you teach, and it's been absolutely so powerful to watch in this last weekend's event at UM to see this concept of saboteurs and sages, and what that means, like what it even is, and how they're affecting your happiness on a daily, moment by moment basis. Could you dig in there, not too deep, but just give us kind of a 35,000 foot view of what these things are?
Sure. Yeah. And this is an old idea going way back when, and there's a guy named Dr. Sherzad who wrote a book called Positive Intelligence. It's really popularized. You can dig into that. The man's brilliant, who goes into this old concept, and he does really, really a great job, I think. But we use it in such a way that there's basically a bifurcation inside each person. You've got like the angel on your shoulder and then the devil on the other shoulder, just like the old cartoons. And these are internal forces vying and battling for your attention. It's like the old story of the Native American chief who his grandson came to and said, you're this powerful, wise chief. How'd you get so powerful and wise? He said, there's a good wolf and there's an evil wolf. And they're always battling. And the young man says, well, who wins? And the chief says, the one that you feed the most. And so we have to understand this concept that the sage or the saboteur, the good force within us with the good voice that encourages us and tells us you can do it and find a pathway, you can make it happen, or the voice that says you don't have what it takes, constantly accusing us of not being enough, gets us to blame ourselves and blame other people and focus on the negative. The force within us that wins is the one that we feed the most. And how we feed them is becoming the feeder of our lives, understanding that we alone are responsible for this. A big milestone of growing up is when we stop blaming our parents for anything that happened to us in childhood, and we are determined to move forward in life. And we can do this by capturing our thoughts, like Philippians chapter 4, verse 8 talks about in the Bible, making sure that we get up and we do our rituals in the morning and the evening, exercising, eating right, developing core competencies that we can be proud of, being around other people who are like-minded. Proximity is power. Oh, so powerful. And that's one of the greatest offerings of Undisputed Mastery, to get around other powerful, super successful millionaires who want more in their life than just money. They want positivity. They want competency. They want purpose. They want tribe. And so those are the ways that you feed the sages.
No, it's that contrast, if you will, that devil and angel on the shoulder has been so profound in my development, because that we all have multiple saboteurs, as I'm learning, right? That's those negative voices in your head, the one that when you're going to do something and you're like, why can't I do it? It's like, like that voice kicks in your head, like, you can't do that. You're going to fail at that. Like, don't get close to the edge. You're scared of heights. Like, it's that little voice that's constantly in there. And so many of us, if we would never be friends with that voice in our head, the one that's always knocking us down, right? And I once I realized that, I'm like, wait a minute, I have a choice in what that is, and I can stop that, or not necessarily stop it, but I can at least be aware of that. It's not me speaking. Yeah. I know this might sound crazy to listeners. It's not actually me speaking. It's a saboteur. And if I fed the sage, the one that says, you got this, you're going to learn. Don't worry, next time will be better. You feed that one more, all of a sudden things become more positive. You take bigger risk, or you do something you were always scared of because in your head you couldn't do it, but you really could. You just fed the wrong wolf.
That's right.
So, it's so crazy, but it is so powerful once you start realizing that your brain isn't your friend at times. You know what I mean? It's playing with you, and it's I guess because its overall function is to keep you alive.
That's right.
Right. To procreate and move your genetics forward. So the safer you are, the more you stay away from the edge of that cliff or don't take chances or risks, the better chance that happens. So deep down, we're wired that way. But, that's not fun. And like, it's not going to get you where you want to go, I guess is my bigger point. But that is just such an interesting concept.
Yeah. And well said. You've got a great handle on it, Joshua. You really do. And that's the idea, right? It's just for us to realize, wait a minute, I want to externalize, and this is just an externalization of these things, so that I can go, wait a minute, who's talking to me right now? This is the saboteur. I know what you're up to. Nope, you're not getting me this time. You take a deep breath, you lower your shoulders, and just like Tony Robbins teaches us, right, we change our state, we change our focus, we change our life. And in that moment, we go, now, what would it mean to listen to the sage right now? Oh, okay. Take a breath and walk away. It could be something simple. Don't respond to a text right away that you're going to regret. Or maybe, go out there and personify it, take it to the next level. And that's one of the things we do in Undisputed Masteries. We help you develop a champion identity. Like with me, it's Veritas. And so I get to say, what would Veritas do? What would that be? Veritas would do this. Or with my wife, I like the personification of Zorro, the Latin lover, right? Because when I'm Zorro, I can show up and go, oh, baby, come on, tell me what's going on. Instead of, having to be, listen to the saboteur, because my saboteur version of that is the commando, the guy who's cold-hearted and stonewalls and just wants his way. I don't want to be that guy. That guy's an asshole, right? I want to be Zorro with my wife, the lover, the one that sees beauty in her. And I can manifest that in a moment with just this simple concept of saboteurs and sages.
I love that. I love that during that that each participant, is they go through a process where they kind of bring out their main saboteur. And for me, it was Captain Bullshit. Yeah. Right. I was bullshitting myself when I was, thinking that I was a good father and all this kind of stuff. And I was bullshitting myself, and I was really lying, and saying that I should have been, I could have been much more. I could be much more present and all that. But I was like, well, I'm just too important for that. I got too many things going on. it doesn't make sense. So Captain Bullshit was my saboteur. And then the sage that was assigned to me by the tribe, because they watch what's going on, and then they help each other come up with an empowering name for this person who doesn't do that anymore. And it was the ultimate warrior.
Yeah.
That puts his family first, right? And all of a sudden it's different. So when I show up to something and I'm in some kind of a conflict, I'm conflicted inside, I guess a better way to say that, I'll think, okay, what would the ultimate warrior do? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Simple, right? And then all of a sudden you're coming from if I went to the Captain Bullshit side where I was back where I was before, of course I know what I'd do. I'd go into just put my head down and working a bunch more and just acting like it's for them. And it's not for them. I'm stealing from them. This is my way of doing that, stealing time from them. But then flipping it and saying, what would the ultimate warrior do? Well, the ultimate warrior, if he's a fantastic father that puts his family first, well, it sounds like my priorities are very clear. If there's an opportunity to do this or spend time with my family, guess who wins?
Yeah, that's right.
So it makes decision making so much easier too. So that's crazy.
It does.
So crazy. Well, Keith, I know that you're also part of an incredible, charity that works to help. It's called ORC. I want to kind of let you unpack that because it's such a powerful thing. We got to see some of the operational work this weekend, and for some of the operators that are actually going in and doing this incredible work. So could you talk a little bit about ORC, what it is, who it serves, and how people can get involved if it's something that's on their heart like it is for me? Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, brother, for the opportunity. Yeah, ORC stands for Operation Rescue Children. And we're an organization that seeks to empower teams all around the world who are already in place stopping human trafficking. And human trafficking is just a fancy phrase for people taking children slaves and having sex with them. I mean, it's happening all over the world. When I discovered that there were more slaves in the world today than ever before, I mean, Joshua, when I heard that statistic, I was like, no way. I thought we got rid of slavery 150 years ago. But we don't, man. Yep. I mean, it's sex slaves, it's indentured labored workers, it's people being, kidnapped and stolen to have their organs harvested. I mean, it is just darkness and evil. And just imagine, I mean, you've got kids. It's little girls mostly, but it's also little boys. It's women also, and sometimes men who are forced, like they say, by the cartel to be their soldiers, their pimps, if you will. Man, it's happening all over the world, and it's growing right here in the United States. And so when we saw this problem, I began this concept, and I connected with my good friend and martial art instructor, Harley Elmore, and his wife, Crystal. My wife, Adrienne, and I said, we got to do something. And so together we formulated this team, and now we have our full nonprofit status, and we train the real heroes who go out there and save children. I mean, you saw this weekend. We can't talk about a lot of detail operationally, but I mean, you're pulling babies out of the river. We're breaking open doors and seeing little girls who have been raped and sodomized over and over. And we have these people coming across the border who are just trying to find a better way for themselves. But, the cartel basically promises them everything and separates the children from the mothers, separates the men from the women, and they use them as human inventory. And so we're helping law enforcement agencies. We're training them on the border. We use ex-veterans to help us do the training. So we give them a fantastic work to do. And we help also non-government agencies, NGOs, like missionaries who have teams around the world intervening and breaking up trafficking rings, because it's become very, very sophisticated. And so when we help a team, basically what we're doing is we're 10Xing the effort. And we have no competition, meaning that no one else is really doing what we're doing. So if there's a team in place out there doing work to stop human trafficking, we're going to help them. And we do it all 100% for free. Believe it or not, even some of the top law enforcement agencies in this country have to choose, because of their funding has been cut so much. They have to choose between, like, let's say, a bulletproof vest and training. And so we have innovated all of their training. In fact, the guy that is my partner, Harley Elmore, is so good. He's trained the top military teams, the tier 1 teams in the world. And I challenge everybody to look up who tier 1 is. It's only a couple teams out of all the awesome military teams in the world. He's trained the best of the best of the best. And his training has innovated what these law enforcement agencies are doing, how they stop cars, how they do vehicle interdiction, how they get in there and save people. It's amazing, because these heroes, once they're trained now, they get to go back home safely. And then we get to train more, and then they develop a culture and they train more and more and more. And so we're doing really fantastic work. And we're looking to expand to have people who can do searches on internets to help find victims, to help crack down on illegal rings. For instance, the Super Bowl is coming up in less than a month. It's the #1 sex trafficking event in the world, right here in the United States. You get people who have a bunch of little girls on average age 9 to 11 years old, and they move them from hotel to hotel, from city to city. And then these people we call Johns come in there and just have their way with them for money. And once the event is over, they just move them to another place. It's happening right underneath our noses. And the thing is it's not just poor people or foreign people. It's people right here, high SES people, kids being stolen from malls. I mean, just imagine if this was your kid. I mean, we had to do something.
No, and I'm so amazed, not amazed, it's not the right word, just so happy you did, because I never realized it was a problem. I always thought that happened somewhere else, at the border, another foreign country. And when I was talking to the operators that we met with, they were showing pictures of children that they liberated, out of these conditions, and they were local.
Yep.
And they're saying, like, when they said about these big sporting events or big events, and also the fact that it happens in most communities and it just goes unspoken. Nobody wants to talk about it.
That's right.
And I can't even imagine having 2 young boys and having that be their story. We need men. And what really rocked me to my core was hearing that these men, in this case, that were out freeing these sex slaves, that they have very little support. That's and right. That they have families too. And to think that one would have to make a decision between whether they could or couldn't afford a bulletproof vest so they could protect themselves to go home to their own families is just unacceptable. That they didn't have the training to be able to work with, other groups in order to make sure they can break more of these rings is unacceptable. This is something that should not exist in humanity, and it needs to be eliminated immediately. And the only way we do that is proper awareness, as you're doing, and also the training. I mean, Harley's incredible. Principal Savage, we got a little taste of that, right? Yeah. It was really quite amazing. I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. I am a dangerous man. This is pretty crazy. But to take that and take people that are far further on their skill set and train them specifically in these kinds of things and give them the ability to be safer, stronger, and more effective as people out there solving this problem. I'm all in, let's do this, because it needs to be handled and eradicated from humanity.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Thank you for those words.
Crazy.
Because it's true. And it's hard to talk about, but I ask people, please check out our website, if I may. It's operationrescuechildren.org. operationrescuechildren.org. And if you could even just pass around the sense of awareness, because it starts just by realizing that this is a dark problem and it's happening in communities all underneath our noses right here in the U.S., not even just in big cities. They're targeting a lot of the smaller towns around to capture kids, and they're never seen from again. And so when they get on our website, Joshua, they can get on there and read a little bit about us, look at our videos. And if your heart is so moved, just, if nothing else, pray. Join us in prayer so that our heroes that we train can go out and do their work and come back home safely. And you never know. It may be someone that you know or your very own child that they save. Because you think about it. When is it that you're going to wish that you had prayed? Is it the moment when your child doesn't come home and you think, oh my God, they're gone? Or is it where you can do something, you can pray, maybe you can give now, so that these people can do their jobs to break open that ring, to stop this before they come back to your town? Because it's most likely they've already been to your town, to keep them from coming back. Think about that.
Well, that's one way to end it here, Keith. It's the work you guys are doing is unbelievable, and to meet the people involved and to know them personally. I know in the past when I would give or to charities, that kind of thing, I'd always want to know the people, so I know that it's not like 98 cents on the dollar is going to some corporate entity and 2% actually gets to the people. I know you guys personally. I know every penny goes directly to the cause.
That's right.
And to see what's possible with that is absolutely fascinating. So anybody out there that if this has moved them, even a donation of $20 or $100 is something that helps. It helps these men. It helps these these operators coming in to break this up. Because to your point, it's too late when your kid's gone. If they can solve this problem way ahead of time by being much more effective at stopping it before it ever even happens. So, Keith, how else can people reach out to you if they're interested in Undisputed Mastery or any of the other things that you offer? I know you have a lot going on. So what do you think is the best way for that?
Yeah, they can look at that website, undisputedmastery.com. You can check that out, or also my other website, Keith M. Waggoner, Waggoner, Keith, the letter M, Waggoner, Waggoner.com. Or send this guy a message, and you could always get that to me.
Absolutely. No, I'd be very happy to do that. Well, Keith, any other little bits of nuggets or of knowledge or anything you want to drop on our audience before we wrap up?
Oh man, there's so much.
You're always full of good ideas.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having me. You are doing a great work in the world. I mean, and the thousands and millions of people that are here that will hear your podcast. I mean, I'm so glad that you're doing well. I'm very proud of you, brother. Thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you. And thank you for doing what you do. And so guys out there listening, hopefully you got as much as I did from this podcast. And Keith has been with me now for, like I said, about 4 years, and it's changed everything. So if you think that you're at a stage in your life where you need to have, someone to guide you, to mentor you, either reach out to Keith. If not, find somebody.
Yeah.
The main thing is, and a lot of people will actually, if you go to them and say, look, I really want someone to help guide me. I need, you're going where I want to go. Is there any way you can help me get there? And you'll be surprised by how many people who are truly successful would say, I will help you in any way I can. And they will help and guide you, because that's how they got successful, is the fact that they're willing to help and bring people with them and not just do it all for themselves. If they say, no, screw you, get out of here, then in my opinion, they aren't truly successful people, because truly successful people contribute and grow other people. So thank you, Keith. It's been amazing as always. And thank you for coming on. And anybody out there, I'm hoping that you got a lot from this, and we'll see you next week.